Welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking to our two gentlemen, guests. Mr. Rashidi is an architectural historian, and his special area of interest is urban conservation. Sir, yours is something, I must admit, is something that I have never come across, urban conservationists. What's it about?
Well, it's about preserving whole areas of cities and places, not just focusing on monuments, but also thinking about everyday houses and streets and features that we might take for granted. But what makes a place what it isn't just the greatest buildings in it, but it's everything, including the physical environment, but also the social environment, trades, activities, traditions.
Yeah.
And so my background is more in how to preserve a place with everything that's in it, rather than knowing how to kind of preserve the old paint of a magnificent ceiling.
Right, right, good. What inspires you to do these things, you see?
Well, I think historic environments have something about them, a sense of community, a sense of place, traditions. They're usually distinctive, and I think maybe that's what inspires me, going to places that are somehow different from everywhere else,
right.
or occupied by people who love to live in them and who have, in many cases, been there for generations.
Have you done any work on these lines in London?
Well, I worked in Durham and Salisbury before moving to London, and both places have those qualities. Currently, I'm working on a project at the University of London, which is to digitize the historic maps of London, create a website that layers them, so you can see how London has changed, and you can also share information, old photos, memories online, and it's a way of getting people to share history and to realize that the history of everyday people, of normal people, is also very important.
Has East London come under your consideration?
Yes, of course. It's a very important part of London, and actually one of the things we're keen to do is to encourage people to share histories that have not been recorded and not been shared.
Like that of Jack the Ripper?
Perhaps. Or maybe even less well known than Jack the Ripper.
Have you had the occasion to work on areas of Egypt? Because I know that Egypt is a very old city and a very historical city.
Yes, when I worked on Cairo for a long time, in Cairo, in the medieval part of the city, and I think my passion for this line of work comes from the fact that I grew up in a city where many people didn't appreciate heritage that wasn't very ancient. And sometimes, coming from a very ancient civilization, people don't think that buildings or places that are 100 or 200 years old are important, and so they disappear. And these are often the places that are captured in the photography exhibition, the porches, and the buildings that Richard takes photos of. And so there's a very good link between the photography collection and exactly the kind of heritage that is the most threatened.
Right. Richard, you have been involved in many other projects as well. I mean, apart from this departure, so you as a photographer, you as a curator. What are those projects that you have been involved and worth mentioning?
Well, I take great inspiration from the kinds of historical photographs that we've included in this exhibition. And a lot of my work as a photographer myself and filmmaker is about cultural heritage that's been damaged, destroyed, or changed beyond recognition. And I've done several photography exhibitions which show historical images alongside my contemporary photography. So I've done a lot of work in Iraq, in Kurdistan region of Iraq.
It's a pretty dangerous place.
Surprisingly,
it was not.
Surprisingly not. Although it's close to places which have been obviously plagued by great troubles. But it has undergone various waves of destruction, and so there's a lot of places which you can see in historical photographs which are no longer there. And by showing the two alongside each other, you can draw attention to that change. And I also do a lot of work documenting cultural heritage in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is also a country which has undergone great changes in the last 100 years. And so I think that working with historical photographs is a very important part of my work as a photographer now and filmmaker now. And the images in this exhibition are the images in this exhibition are ones that I draw great inspiration from.
Okay, we have some footage, so can we have a look at them?
Certainly.
And then while we are watching them, can you explain what are they about?
Certainly.
Okay, can we have those images, please?
So this is the map that I mentioned earlier, and it really spans the region that we focus on in this exhibition, the Islamic world as it was at the end of the 19th century. And the images that you see overlaid on top of this map, this was really, I wanted to create something that felt a bit like an old atlas in a children's book where you had these wonderful illustrations laid over a map. And I also wanted to create something that was very accessible to children and to adults, and something that communicated immediately this great diversity of architecture, of costume, and so that was really the intention here. This map in the exhibition is printed across one whole wall of the gallery, about 7 meters wide by 3 meters tall.
Is this part of the Arabian Peninsula and Africa?
Yes, you see Africa down as far as...
Can we have the next one, please?
You see Africa down as far as Tanzania.
Yeah.
And then at the top you have Albania. And the far west you have Morocco, and the far east you have China.
There's a sizable population of Muslims in China, and I'm sure that particularly in the areas where they live, you see, they must have influenced the architecture there.
Certainly, yes, certainly.
Yeah, can we have the next image, please?
So this is another set of images in the exhibition. This is a wall of prints. These images are colour, but the original photographs were taken before the invention of colour photography. So they were black and white photographs, which were then hand-coloured. So an artist, and they really were artists, because these photographs, these images are beautiful. The artist then painted over with a sort of watercolour to turn a black and white picture into a colour picture, and then they could be printed with the 4-colour printing process as postcards.
Was the originality of the picture lost in somehow, or enhanced?
I would say enhanced, because they are something quite different from just photographs. They're somewhere between a photograph and a painting, I suppose. And we have 30 of these images printed in the exhibition.
Yep. Can we have those pictures, you see, one by one?
So these are some examples. I can't see too well what's being shown on the screen, but this is a panorama of Mecca. These are various images from parts of the exhibition. This is Turkey, a mosque in Turkey. These are some black and white pictures from the other sequence. Here we have Delhi, fort in Delhi. So this is actually a mixture of images from the cinema sequence and some of the printed colour images.
These are people who are having fun.
Yes, indeed. This is a fun fair in Suez in Egypt. This is a courtyard of an old house in Cairo. This is the style of architecture that Seif was talking about earlier. Some of these beautiful old buildings.
Similar architecture in Alexandria, right? The seaside.
Yeah.
This is a carpenter in North Africa. And then this is the
Masjid al-Nabawi.
courtyard of the Prophet's Mosque in
Yes.
Medina.
It's much changed now.
Much changed, yes. As is Mecca, as
Yes,
in
of
relation
course.
to the picture that we saw a
Yes.
minute ago. And these are Egyptians praying by their boat in the Nile. These are some of the streets and cafe scenes. This is the open-air minbar in Jerusalem. Yeah, these are men praying by their boats in Egypt. And I'm not sure if they can bring this up now, but I wanted to talk about another element of the exhibition, the Instagram photographers.
Can we have the Instagram thing, Rashik? Okay. You have been to Jeddah, isn't it?
Yes, many times.
Many times, you see. The old city of Jeddah, you see.
Al-Balad.
Yes, Al-Balad.
Indeed.
That presents, this is a different kind of atmosphere, you see. The old houses, you see, with wooden balconies, see. There's one very, very famous house, Seif.
The Seif house,
yes,
indeed.
And I've seen similar architecture in Egypt also, in some parts of Cairo, see. Are they still there? Have they been preserved?
Al-Balad is still there. Al-Balad has...
The buildings?
The buildings, some of them are still there, thankfully. The Nassif house has been preserved very nicely. It's been restored. Al-Balad is an area that's fascinated me since I first started going to Jeddah many years ago. And it's been very much neglected. And many of the original people, the inhabitants, have moved out because it became rather difficult to live there. And the original Saudi inhabitants of Al-Balad have been replaced by immigrants from Africa, mainly Somalia and Sudan and so on. So it's actually a very multicultural, vibrant place.
That is the fate of most city centres, isn't it?
Yes, and it's brought about a new kind of renewal, really, there. And it's a wonderful place. And it has now, to some extent, been restored, finally, which is good news.
Right. Richard and Mr. Seif, could you tell us something about the exhibition that's taking place at Asia House, and when is it starting, when is it ending, and when is your talk and all that?
Certainly. So the exhibition actually opened today, and it continues until the 3rd of May, and it's open Monday to Saturday, although there is a weekend closure for Easter. But you can find details on Barakat's website. If you Google Barakat Trust, there's very prominently on the website information about the exhibition. The other event you mentioned is a talk that I'm giving on Thursday, the 18th, in the evening. And this is really me showing examples of historical photography of the Middle East, Islamic world, and including some of my own photographs, some of my own stories of travels and work in the region. And that's on Thursday.
We have to wrap it up now.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us, and we hope that you have enjoyed the show as much as we have. Same time, same channel next week. But don't forget to visit Asia House and exhibition and watch this exhibition. Okay? Thank you.